Hello, everyone, and welcome to Designing Characters, where I explain turning characters from my mind and other media into characters for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. Here we focus on builds and personality traits, utilizing standard array or point buy with D&D Beyond's layout. Before we begin, I made a slight mistake on my last build, seen here. The video in question, my Doctor Who build for those interested, had an issue with minimum dexterity requirements. For multiclassing, you need to have 13 in both the primary stats of either class that you're trying to multiclass into, basically. Somehow, my D&D Beyond didn't correct it and allowed me to build the character anyway. I'm sure it was a bug. It might have been patched out by now because I couldn't replicate the issue. I could have also misread. It's entirely feasible. Some downsides with the script. But I just wanted to correct it here and let everybody know. So if you do use that build, keep in mind that you will have to work with your DM to give yourself an extra stat boost, or you just switch around your stats a little bit so you have a 13 dex at least. Now, with my fumbles out of the way, today we're designing Goblin Slayer, the socially and emotionally stunted rage machine inspired by Guts of Berserk, but a bit more vanilla? Also, in a D&D inspired world where the character tells their player,
クソくらえだ。
pretty frequently whenever they roll natural ones. So, what are the traits that our little rage machine needs? First, an intense skill set. You pick up bits of information and skills from all over the world. Even though you aren't the smartest, you're creative and know how to put those skills and unusual knowledge to real use. Next, balanced combat. Aside from magic, there isn't much in combat you can't do. You're an evasion tank, ambush specialist, archer, and flanker. Even if you specialize in the little green monsters, you're nothing to sniff at against other opponents. As well, rage. Sometimes you get mad. So mad you don't die and just get back up. And then rip out the eyeball out of the biggest threat for a disgustingly high intimidation roll. Finally, we need terrifying presence. To make that intimidation roll work, you need to be scary. You're not very good at the social norms and other emotions, but rage, hatred, and instilling terror in your enemies, and even those you work with and save, ? That's something you have. So, let's hit this off with race. Unlike some characters that I've done, and have in the works, there's a perfectly reasonable race for Goblin Slayer. Our poor, traumatized, ragey boy is a normal, run-of-the-mill, average human. He's not a variant, not abnormal in any way, really. That's kind of his entire theme. Everything he has, he earned. He might be albino, though I suppose that's a slight deviation, but come on, that's not a variant human. So, what this gives you is a +1 to every stat and 1 bonus language. Let's shift gears a bit into the background and story that builds up this character. As always, beware of spoilers. The world of Goblin Slayer isn't any standard Wizards of the Coast universe, because lawsuits. But in the standard world, goblins are considered evil monsters that swarm farms, kill, and pillage for their own benefit. So the actual setup is pretty easy for this character. You're a normal human child, born in the countryside. One day when you're young, a swarm of orcs, what we're going to call the series is hobgoblins, and goblins attack your village, slaughtering, pillaging, and all else that I will not speak of because YouTube doesn't like those words, regardless of how you use them. The lone survivor, you are found near death by an elderly halfling man that was tracking this very group of monsters. He takes pity on you, giving you food and water and a direction to go before returning to his hunt. But instead, empty, you follow him, driven by a cold rage that has filled your being. You watch him hunt, watch him kill and slaughter them as if they're nothing from a distance. At the end, he waits for you to approach, and you ask him to train you. You tell him you want to kill them too, and so your harsh training begins. Now, going with this background, we're looking at the answers to a few questions. First, your racial language is going to be halfling, something you pick up working with your teacher. though you tend to learn the curses first with his demeanor. The second is your actual background. We're going with the Haunted One background, who would have guessed, due to your obviously traumatic and really messed up past. Though, despite what some may say, not nearly as bad as some manga that got big on far worse. Berserk. Now, this background gives you a few things. The first two are skill proficiencies. We're going to be taking investigation and survival. You care about killing the goblins, not their religion or magic. For languages, you'll be taking Goblin, the first language that matters to you. Knowing your enemy is one of your greatest strengths. Now, for your exotic language, take Undercommon so that you know the language used for the various allies that the goblins tend to hold in their caves. Along with this comes the background feature, Heart of Darkness. This feature allows you to show just how jaded and skilled at killing goblins you are, persuading your fellow commoners and average Joes to take up arms and listen to your expertise when the goblins are coming to ransack the town. This feature can be used pretty easily to help your intimidation checks in some way too. Talk with your DM. It may help balance out all the bad charisma that you're going to have later on. For character details, I'd say you're true neutral. Though, as always, alignments are a guideline at best. You have moments I'd say are outright lawful evil, as well as chaotic good ones, however. And your general standard state seems to be more in line with true neutral as a whole. Though, as you continue to explore with your companions and rediscover your emotions and humanity, that might change. Your only faith is that goblins need to die. All of them. But putting that aside, the god that seems to fit your actions would probably be Helm. As you're looking out for the little guy by handling all those dirty jobs dealing with goblins that no one else your level wants to handle. But because you're not doing them to help other people, but as a personal vendetta to slaughter them all out of rage, hatred, and vengeance, we're gonna go with Hor, the god of vengeance itself. A little bit more of a lesser-known deity from the circles that I've been in for D&D. Read on him. It's a very interesting god. Inspired a couple other character ideas. You live in a nice little farm cottage with the only other survivor of the edgy part of your history. So we'll place you at a modest lifestyle. Even though usually you have the coin to live in higher luxury, even with the lower-end jobs you perform, it's better using that coin for things to kill goblins with. Better to be prepared for every situation. Time to go buy a scroll connected to the bottom of the ocean instead of a luxury inn room. Now, for your appearance, you're actually surprisingly good looking. If you didn't have such a nasty glint in your eye and stink, you'd probably be called handsome by most. That's kind of the thing with charisma. Keep in mind for later when we go into the stats. Charisma is not always physical attractiveness. It can be, depending on your DM, but it's supposed to be strength of character and charm and personality and force of will. It's not really how pretty you are. Now, going by the novel as well as the manga, though it's harder to discern in the actual manga, we know that you have white hair, scarlet eyes, and pale skin that marks you as likely having albinism, as I mentioned previously. You have slightly above average height, but you don't tower over others by any means, putting you at probably around 5 foot 10 inches. That's around 177 centimeters for the rest of the world that isn't America. Now, when it comes to personality, if it isn't killing goblins, you really do struggle with finding things to talk about and do. Let's go with a few simple traits for you to build off of as roleplay continues. Take I don't run from evil, evil runs from me, and I love the thrill of the hunt. Though you could also toss in I put no trust in divine beings for good measure. For ideals, take I like to know my enemy's capabilities and weaknesses before rushing into battle. Now, there is a bit of leeway here on where in the Ragey Boy's life we're talking about. But throughout the series, you never really show yourself as a heartless monster. Just broken and a little messed up. The traits you start to show with your companions encourages me to also take I kill monsters to make the world a safer place and to exercise my own demons. Following that same line of thought, grab a terrible guilt consumes me. I hope that I can find redemption within my actions, and there's evil in me, I can feel it. It must never be set free to represent that dark side. But your constant desire to fight and do better is clearly there as well, even if that desire is tinged with self-loathing of your weakness and at your desire for bloody vengeance. Finally, for your flaws' take, I feel no compassion for the dead, the lucky ones. And I have an addiction, because you very much do, even if it isn't in the classical substance abuse form. No, your addiction is the killing of goblins. You need it. It's your core drive, and it's utterly consumed you. Now, with all the fun character roleplay quirks done, let's move on to the meaty mechanical side of things. First off, your ability scores. I'll be using the standard array here. If your DM allows rolls, that's great, but I assume your DM is a goblin lover. Probably should make him your character's final goal, actually. Now, Goblin Slayer is less than impressive in most statistical things. That isn't to say that he's weak or slow or stupid by any means. In fact, he's none of those. He is balanced, tactical, creative, with a varied skill set and notably athletic physique. He's a jack of all trades. However, that doesn't come without its own issues. Put your 15 in strength. When your shirt did finally come off, people were astounded at the amount of raw muscle you had on you. Next is the 14 in constitution. The next thing they noticed was the fact that you were more scar tissue than normal skin. Following this, put your 13 in dexterity. You're incredibly nimble and definitely are a purveyor of light to medium armor. For that, you're going to need some proper reflexes. Next, your 12 should go into wisdom. You're not great at analyzing people, but your situational awareness, focus, tracking skills, and understanding of the wilds are pretty top-notch. Along with this is a 10 in intelligence. You're not a genius by any means, but you're a bit above the average Joe. You remember things most forget, see creative uses for that knowledge, and can learn new things if you put in the effort. Finally, put your 8 into your charisma. You don't maintain your equipment, you're terrible at people, social situations are alien to you, and frankly, you tend to stink. Now, keep in mind, your race will put these each at 16, 15, 14, 13, 11, and 9, respectively. That gives you a lot of odd numbers, which hurts my soul on a deep level, but that 14 dex and 16 strength will help you a lot. Now, moving on to class. When you were first taught, you weren't anything but a kid in some rags being taught how to dodge, run, hide, and survive desperately against fate. You didn't have real combat training here. Your master nearly tortured you so that you could learn to endure and invade. Due to this, take your first level in Rogue. Rogues get a D8 hit die, proficiency in dexterity and intelligence saving throws, which will help quite a bit with all those simple traps that goblins tend to rely on. As well, this grants you proficiency in light armor, simple weapons, hand crossbows, long swords, rapiers, and short swords, because 5th edition can't just give them martial weaponry. Now, you're starting out, so your equipment is pretty ragged. Some old leathers, a sturdy old short sword, and a spare crossbow from the farm will just have to do for now. Taking Rogue also helps with your proficiency in lockpicking. As you've said, you're not the greatest at it, so no one should rely on you, but you're a lot better than the rest of your party at it. You also gain proficiency in 4 skills. Take acrobatics, athletics, perception, and stealth. You're great at using your body to avoid falling rocks, leaping from one perch to the next, and doing it all as quietly as possible. You don't have the best physique or genetics, so mastering what you do have is key. You also gain expertise in 2 skills. Choose perception and stealth. Even though you're able to hold your own on the front line, in the end you'd much rather solve a problem from a distance or while your prey is asleep. That requires awareness and the ability to catch the goblins unaware. This also gives you Thieves' Cant, a special language that only other thieves know. Though you don't consider yourself a thief, acquiring some substances like oil, explosive powders, toxins, and just various black market deals means you're going to need to know this. Picking up the language they use there is natural for you. Finally, you gain Sneak Attack, allowing your attack to add an additional d6 damage when using a finesse weapon in specific circumstances, once per turn. For the future, keep in mind that you don't need to attack with dexterity for this to work. It need only be a finesse weapon, meaning your strength-based attacks do work with this class perk. For level 2, a little bit of a mirror here with the Doctor Who build, I'm afraid. For very different reasons, though. But take your last level in Rogue. Once more, you may be a frontline fighter, but you're not a classical tank by any means. You prefer evasion, tactical movements, creating distance, and attacking from new vantage points to maximize your abilities. Due to this, you desperately need the ability that this gives you, Cunning Action. This allows you to use your bonus action to dash, disengage, or hide. Use this to escape away from the main battle. Fall into a spot beside a coffin and get a sneak attack in to end the fight. Disengage from an attacker and shift back. Make them reposition or shift targets to attack your shaman summons instead. This build is very much going to rely on having a tactical map. Talk to your DM about making the battle maps, even if it's just a piece of paper with Sharpie on it. But make there be rocks, difficult terrain. Make it so that your abilities aren't wasted here and you can actually use and flex that cunning action. You can be tactical on the terrain and manipulate as you see fit. Now, for level 3, let's switch over to Ranger. You finally managed to get a proper degree of combat training in, most of it through barely surviving your first goblin hunts and learning from your mistakes. Multiclassing into Ranger will give us the rest of our primary combat abilities, a bit more fleshing out of our skills and our main focus, killing goblins. Keep in mind the multiclassing requirements for these classes. You need 13 in dexterity and wisdom for this. Thankfully, due to your race, you have exactly that. At level 1 Ranger, you will gain an extra d10 hit die, as well as proficiency in medium armor, shields, martial weapons, and a single extra skill. Take Nature to help flesh out your knowledge of your favorite terrains and situations. Next, you gain a favored enemy. Take humanoids, and then go down to the sub-features and select goblinoids and orcs as your specialty. Obviously, why would you choose anything else? For your language, take orc to understand the language of the evolved bigger goblins and what they're using for speech. This grants you advantage on any wisdom or intelligence checks based on tracking your favorite enemies or recalling knowledge about them. With this, you also gain Natural Explorer, granting you a variety of useful benefits when traveling through your favorite terrain for you and your party. Choose the Underdark. You find yourself deep in caves hunting goblins more than anything else. Point out which tunnels work best, avoid the traps with ease, locate what mushrooms are good to eat, and help your party know exactly what they're getting into within the darkness. Now that you've gotten the foundation for your fighting style and character basis, it's time to deviate into your final multiclass, the core foundation of your character and combat style as you enter higher levels. It's time for Barbarian, folks. Take level 4 in Barbarian, breaking every code by having 3 different classes at level 4. But trust me, it'll be worth it for the roleplay value and versatility you can bring to the party until you really hit your rage rolling. Now, a level 1 Barbarian grants us a d12 hit die, unarmored defense, which allows us to add our Constitution modifier to our AC when not wearing armor, something that won't be used for this build, and finally, Rage. Now, Rage allows you to enter an enraged state as a bonus action, turning your eye into a glowing red orb for a minute, or until you are knocked unconscious, haven't taken damage, or haven't attacked anything since your last turn. Don't worry, that won't be a problem until all of the goblins are dead anyway. Now, keep in mind, in this state, you cannot cast spells, something that will matter later. But instead, you gain advantage on all your strength checks and saving throws. Good for grappling an orc chieftain by the throat to choke him out using human hair, because anime. As well as adding bonus damage based on the rage chart to your strength-based melee weapon attack damage rolls. That's a mouthful. You also gain resistance to bludgeoning, slashing, and piercing damage, letting you take that ogre's swing head-on and get back up with a bit of help. For level 5, take a second level of Barbarian. This grants us Reckless Attack, allowing you to give yourself advantage on all attacks you make this turn. But in return, all attacks until your next turn have advantage against you as well. This allows you to combine your strength attacks using your short sword with the bonus damage from sneak attack, making Reckless, which is already a very powerful ability, that much better for you. This level, you also gain Danger Sense. This grants you advantage on any dexterity saving throws performed against things that you can see, making your dungeon and cave delving to deal with constant goblin traps that much easier on you. Goblin Slayer has some crazy reflexes honed by his survival training. I guess dodging cave-ins from your deranged master does that to you. For level 6, we're going to continue on our path of Barbarian for just a bit longer. Level 3 Barbarians allow you to finally start really delving into that too pissed to die vibe you have going on. You gain a primal path. Choose the path of the Zealot. You're welcome to tie this into horror if you wish for some fun Faerunian flair. But most DMs are fine with making this subclass less a divine warrior and more someone bound by their own feelings. Either way works just fine for Goblin Slayer. If there's one word that applies to the man that only takes jobs killing goblins, it's Zealot for his revenge and slaughter. This choice grants you Divine Fury, allowing you to channel that blood-curdling hatred into necrotic damage. While raging, the first weapon attack that lands on your turn gains an additional 1d6 plus half your barbarian level and bonus necrotic damage. As well, you gain Warrior of the Gods. This removes any material cost components required when trying to cast Raise Dead or any other spell or spell-like ability that has the sole effect of bringing one back to life on you specifically, making it so that the Sword Maiden only has to sleep with you to bring you back from death. No expensive diamonds required. For level 7, take your 4th level in Barbarian. It's a bit late, but you finally get that sweet feat. And we are taking a feat. Goblin Slayer is well built and strong, but he's not some monstrous superhuman guts ripoff wielding a big claymore. He's a well-built, normal guy, and due to that, stats will not be a focus for us with this build. Instead, take Lucky. This is the feat we're using to help represent Goblin Slayer's constant desire to tell the players to go to hell. They roll natural ones, he doesn't care, he gets back up anyway. So when you roll double natural ones, you get back up too. Lucky is a little bit of a complicated feat, but not too bad. It allows you to gain 3 luck points, allowing you to effectively spend these points to force a reroll on an attacker or yourself or any of your allies for any attack roll, ability check, or saving throw. You gain all your luck points back after a long rest. Now we're finally getting on a roll here. At level 8, take your 5th level in Barbarian, getting you that sweet second attack to make chances of your surprisingly hard hitting short sword that much higher. This level also grants you fast movement, increasing your movement by an extra 10 feet, bumping you up to 40, which can really make a difference against a bunch of goblins with only 25 to 35 movement. This makes your disengage as a bonus action far more useful to bounce around in combat, as long as you can actually see the board, or everyone's mind palace is very detailed. Now, we're going to hop back over to Ranger for a bit. At level 9, take your 2nd level in Ranger. This will grant you access to a fighting style. Though you don't have any specific style to really pin you down, you do tend to gravitate toward a shield, as well as some other offhand weapon. Usually a short sword, occasionally a spear, but usually you stick to blade and shield or axe and so forth. As such, you'll be taking the dueling fighting style, although an argument could be made for defense due to your constantly switching up with weapons. That +1 AC might just be a better universal bonus. This will grant you a +2 to your damage rolls when wielding a weapon without another weapon in your offhand. Perfect for the various short swords, daggers, short spears, and clubs that you can wield with surprising force. As well, this grants you spell casting as a feature. Now, Goblin Slayer never casts any spells. However, some of the feats he can pull off, because anime, can be explained by a bit of subconscious magic. Even when injured, he has a habit of getting back up despite coughing blood, so take Cure Wounds and say he's performing it subconsciously after taking a heavy hit. Instinctual, natural magic from the energy around him. It fits the whole Ranger vibe pretty well. Next, take Longstrider for those ridiculous feats of agility and movement that you have, like making it to a goblin cave while an entire war is taking place, slaughtering all the reinforcements and their children, and then making it back in time to catch the commander mid-retreat. For level 10, take your 3rd and final level in Ranger. This grants you Primeval Awareness, allowing you to burn a spell slot to sense if aberrations, celestials, dragons, elementals, fae, Fiends and undead are within a mile of you, or within 6 miles if you're underground. Not that you really care, since they aren't goblins, but hey, your party may care, and maybe you finally started to care about them enough to let them know too. What we're really here for is your archetype, and we want Hunter. Not only does it fit Goblin Slayer's entire theme, but it also allows you to choose a Hunter's Prey. Take Horde Breaker. This allows you to make an extra weapon attack against an enemy that is within range of your attack and within 5 feet of your first target. This lets you hit the orc, with your first attack with all your bonus damage, then hit his friend with your second attack, then hit his other friend with yet another attack. Great for those pesky goblin ambushes. You also gain 1 extra spell. Take Absorb Elements for those moments where your insane reflexes allow you to dodge an elemental attack at the last minute, when a goblin shaman shows up. You may even get lucky and redirect it to your weapon for a moment to kill it with its own magic too. Alternatively, you could take Jump for more of those anime moments. Around this point is about where I'd rate Goblin Slayer as he stands when we're introduced to him. But that's not the end of his story now, is it? As he joins a party, continues his adventures, and faces enemies far above the pay grade of what he's used to, so do his abilities grow. So, now at level 11, we're hopping back to Barbarian. Don't worry, we're sticking with it from here on out. Level 6 Zealot Barbarians gain Fanatical Focus, allowing you to re-roll a failed saving throw as long as you're raging. This can only be performed once per rage, however. Now, at level 12 total, level 7 Barbarians gain Feral Focus. This gives you advantage on initiative rolls, and additionally, if you're surprised at the beginning of combat and aren't incapacitated, you can act normally on your turn, but only if you enter rage before all else, burning your bonus action. Goblins don't ambush you. You ambush the goblins ambushing you while they wet their cloths themselves in confusion. Welcome to level 13. Now, as a level 8 barbarian, you get a feat. Time to grab Prodigy to represent just how many skills and the raw knowledge you've managed to acquire from listening to all those people from different walks of life. Who knew that learning ice cream could be important? But most importantly, your ability to terrify nearly anyone with your raw bloodlust. Prodigy gives you a bonus language. Take Elven or Dwarven, or whatever language your party members have been happy to teach you. Next, it grants you proficiency in a skill and expertise in a skill. Use both to gain expertise in intimidation to help balance out that terrible charisma modifier. I also encourage you to ask your DM about a common homebrew rule to use strength or charisma for intimidation checks. Finally, you gain proficiency in 1 toolset. Pick something that fits your roleplay thus far. I'd recommend Tinkerer, Alchemist, or Herbalism Kit to represent the various knowledge you've picked up from bakers, craftsmen, chefs, and herbalists. On to level 14. As a level 9 barbarian, you get your Brutal Critical. This allows you to roll an extra damage die from your weapon as an additional damage for your critical hit. Really hitting the big leagues now at level 15. At level 10 Zealot Barbarian, you gain Zealous Presence. When your party is about to get TPK'd and you need a way out, get back up from your near death, chug a potion, grapple a orc, punch out his eye, and use your bonus action to say a few words. Reinvigorate your party, giving up to 10 creatures of your choice within 60 feet of you that can hear what you have said. Advantage on all attack rolls and saving throws until the start of your next turn. For level 16, you'll hit a level 11 in Barbarian. You are able to go a step beyond just being wounded for that scenario. You now have Relentless Rage, allowing you to make a Constitution saving throw with a DC of 10 to instantly return to 1 hit point instead of being reduced to 0. This DC does increase by 5 for every use, however, so getting up multiple times after your chest has been caved in is a bit difficult. This DC, however, does reset back to 10 after a short rest. Truly reaching your peak potential now. You've reached level 17. At level 12 Barbarian, you gain an extra feat, and I'd go for Defensive Duelist. Though an argument could be made for Shield Master, you tend to lose that shield fairly often and have to fall back on whatever weapon you can grab. Defensive Duelist allows you to use your reaction to add your efficiency bonus to your AC when hit by a weapon attack, as long as you're wielding a finesse weapon that you're proficient with. The crude daggers and short swords you pick up from goblin corpses counts completely. Closing in on that cap and about to hit level 18. As a level 13 barbarian, you enhance your Brutal Critical. Brutal Critical? I'm calling it that from now on. I don't know how to write scripts. It now gains 2 additional damage die instead of just 1, making those decapitations that much more ready against the damn goblins. Almost there at level 19. As a level 14 barbarian, you finally gain access to the main reason we chose Zealot Barbarian for our angry boy, with Rage Beyond Death. While you're raging, having 0 hit points doesn't render you unconscious. You still must make death saving throws and suffer the normal effects of taking damage at 0 hit points, but you won't die if you would die from those death saving throws until your rage ends, and you die then only if you still have 0 hit points. Effectively, Goblin Slayer does not die until every goblin near him is dead too. Hack, slash, slaughter, and devastate. But when you run out of heads to cave in, you also run out of anger to keep going. But now that you're at level 20, we have a solution to that. As a level 15 barbarian, you gain persistent rage. This causes your rage to end early only if you are rendered unconscious, which is now impossible for you while raging, or if you choose to end it early yourself. This means as long as you have slots to burn for your rages, you can stay angry, covered in goblin blood after massacring the entire army for a few minutes, at least until Priestess can heal you so you can finally collapse. Job done. Now that we're finished, the question becomes, how viable is Goblin Slayer? For strengths, you're a fantastic sub-in for a utility character like your rogue or ranger for the party, even if you're not the best at any of it. With expertise and intimidation, you have a decent social skill for certain situations to help balance out the nice face of the party. Expertise in stealth and perception with proficiency in investigation makes you a decent scout for the party. This, along with your proficiencies in nature and physical aspects with your ranger benefits, make you an excellent guide, especially underground. For combat, you're not the classic tank of a barbarian, but you don't need to be. Your high movement, bonus action options, defensive duelist feat, and rogue cunning action make you an incredibly efficient evasion-based tank, capable of hitting 24 AC with resistance to physical damage or using a spell slot to gain resistance against an elemental attack as well. You're anything but a pushover. Use tactics to reposition, flank, get sneak attacks, guarantee heavy hits using reckless attacks, and you may not hit as hard as a proper rogue or a proper barbarian in a single attack, but you'll have far more consistent damage and be far better at staying alive, or simply not dying. Because with fixed hit points and a 15 constitution, which still hurts me personally, you still have 176 hit points, and the ability to simply refuse to die between all your various barbarian abilities. Even when you do die, it's incredibly painless for any cleric to resurrect you. Hell, maybe you'll even unintentionally seduce them with your heroic deed of dying slaughtering their goblin infestations. For weaknesses, it's true you're good at a lot of things, but you're pretty bad at a lot of things too. Honestly, being a half-orc would be even better for this build, as you're a dungeon diver without dark vision or any magical light source. Half-orcs also fit the whole get up even when you die theme even more, and help on the intimidation factor without needing a feat. A barbarian primary with only a +2 saving throw and constitution is pretty bad as well, considering how reliant on it their abilities can be. But by the way he was raised, it felt unnatural to force him to start out as a barbarian when he had no practical combat training at all at first. Rogue felt far more natural as a level 1 option. Low combat saving throws aside from dexterity, low stats for a level 20, and an abysmal set of social skills means you're useless in most social situations, with a reasonable good aligned party anyway. You're not as good at combat as you could be, and your dungeon diving in the dark can get difficult. But that's not what you're about. Creativity is a weapon, and you don't need to be a genius, talented prodigy, or blessed hero to use it well. Read the situation, work with your party to maximize your strengths and shut down the enemy. Set up ambushes, block them off, and set them all on fire. Drown them, boil them, smoke them out, blow them up with an improvised explosive. If things get bad, fall back to your group. Stay in formation, evade, and take the damage so they don't have to. Protect the people that now care for you, and you for them, so that what happened in the past can never happen again. But most importantly, kill goblins. As always, thank you for watching. If you like the videos, please subscribe for more. I do videos on all kinds of Dungeons & Dragons, storytelling, Let's Plays, and various nerd things once to twice a week. As this is one of my first few videos of the series, I want to credit Tulock the Barbarian for the general concept. though I'm going to try and build more focus on the roleplay side of things than the specific builds. Link in the description below to his stuff. He makes phenomenal videos and has re-inspired me to start creating again. Everyone have a fantastic day. Be safe, love each other. Goodbye.